You were able to do this and not tell anybody?
Yes.
Young adult audiences love our teen dramas. We seemingly can't get enough of them. And even more than the drama, we love to look at pretty people. Whether it's the chiseled jawline of KJ Apa from Riverdale, the sand-swept hair of Chase Stokes' John B. from Outer Banks, or Hunter Schafer's dreamy eyes from Euphoria, do we really tune in for the plot or for the eye candy for our own voyeuristic pleasure?
Even though you don't like me like that, I still want us to be friends, best friends.
Some of these shows have fairly solid narratives elaborating on issues and topics that young people today face every day, while some struggle to simply rise above the category of angsty soap opera. And one topic, constantly on the minds of the young adult audience, has been incorporated into each and every single one of these shows, and that topic is sex. Chronologically, Riverdale was the first of these shows to air, and so it'll be the first that we hit. Fans of the show, myself included at the time, were horrified at the end of Season 1 when, spoiler alert, Archie's dad, played by the late Luke Perry, was shot in the Riverdale diner.
Imagine this instant, frozen in time.
Season 2 then opened with Mr. Andrews' fate still hanging in the balance, and after leaving his father's side, Archie is accompanied back home, still covered in his father's blood, by Veronica. The two of them, in the first episode of the season, knocked boots for the first time. Steamy really is the best way to describe this scene, as it quite literally takes place in Veronica's shower, with Archie still covered in his dad's blood. Yikes. Anyway, that's great and all. I'm sure Archie felt a bit better afterward, but any catharsis or pleasure derived from that scene, and the many, many more to follow, is quickly subverted by my remembering the fact that these are supposed to be, at this point in the show, 16 or 17-year-olds. Yikes again. Next, I'm coming for you, Euphoria. The show, created by Sam Levinson, has become a pop culture phenomenon, at least for my generation's age bracket. There are Euphoria-themed parties on campus like every week. Instagram is full of people pointing sunset lamps at themselves and pretending that that makes them artsy. And everyone's makeup taste has suddenly and coincidentally shifted to match up with Jules. I suspect the popularity is due in part to its cast of absolute models, as well as its representation of life emerging into this modern society as a young adult, and the complications that come with that.
Slowly, your brain begins to erase every memory that ever brought you joy.
Body confidence, or lack thereof, toxic relationships, abuse, drug abuse, addiction, porn, and struggles with sexuality are just some of the themes covered by the Drake-produced HBO program. The biggest and most all-encompassing one, however, is that of sex and sexuality. Characters repeatedly engage in explicit sexual acts to either make others jealous, manipulate others, formulate a sense of self-worth, or because of past trauma.
You're crazy.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to get back at my really ex-boyfriend.
What?
Furthermore, the fashion of Euphoria has been noted, and is actually increasingly becoming more and more of a meme, as the show forces its own audience to upend their suspension of disbelief. Not only would none of these high schoolers ever be allowed to set a perfectly pedicured foot on school property wearing their outfits, but the very sexualization of these teen characters also aligns Euphoria with the very malignant content they have been so eager to comment on.
Well, she certainly looks the part.
And finally, it's time for Netflix's Outer Banks. The show, following a group of, you guessed it, teens, traversing the titular territory trying to track treasure, has been running for 2 seasons with a third on the way. While treasure hunting and running away from murderous modern pirates are, hopefully, not things that audiences of the show really have to deal with,
He's right there. Go, 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 go.
it also touches on things like drug abuse, and, that's right, sex. In episode 3 of the first season, Sarah Cameron, played by Madeline Klein, and her, at the time, boyfriend, played by Austin North, disappear into a bedroom with the implication that they sleep together. And in the season 1 finale, Sarah and John B., the main character, portrayed by Jay Stokes, share their own intimate moment while on the run from the authorities. And, again, it is well established from the start of the show that these are high schoolers.
We have a safety meeting. Attendance mandatory.
I can't. My pops got me on lockdown. Come on, man.
And of course, just like with Riverdale, in subsequent seasons the sexual tensions are amplified. I hate to be a wet blanket here. I know these are just fun TV shows about silly teen characters, and teens will inherently do silly things. But, as a film scholar who has had to sit through many lectures on the male gaze and voyeurism and the power of media, propaganda, and film, television included, these programs I think at least elicit some serious thought.
I love sex. I love it. Love it a lot. It's just, there comes a point sometimes where it's just...
Sex is a big deal, to put it plainly. It is not only one of the single most intimate and complex aspects of human life, it is also an extremely potent chemical bonding mechanism. Whether you're one of these new age, sex-positive, casual types that think society has projected way too much emphasis on the love part of lovemaking, or not, there is a traceable, measurable chemical reaction that happens, which can bond you to another person or them to you.
She's alive! Alive!
Orgasming leads to a release of oxytocin, which has lovingly been dubbed the love hormone. This hormone can not only cause you to gain a feeling of attachment, satisfaction, or meaning from your partner, but can also become addicting. The release of these and similar feel-good hormones, such as serotonin, can be so euphoric that, like any other substance, you can be engineered to consistently crave more and more of it. Sex addicts are a thing, my friends, yet shows like Euphoria don't seem at all concerned by that reality. We'll focus on drugs over and over, romanticize them, glorify them in the name of needing to have the discussion around addiction, yet when it comes to something as addictive as sex, it's cheapened to just a convenient plot device to throw our audience a bone. Interesting. It's almost like we can't get past our own perverse desires to really give this aspect of young and general adult life the contemplation, consideration, and nuance that it deserves. And, as a film scholar, let me tell you, we're all about context. So, okay then, let's take a nice, long, hard look at the uncomfortable context that the shows I have used as examples have set up. Number 1. Riverdale. While the show has done well to keep the location of the fictional town open to interpretation, most evidence, as well as the original Archie comics, points to the state of New York. Well, New York State's age of consent is 17. And as mentioned earlier, at the point of Archie and Veronica's sex scene, they were at best right at 17, possibly even 16. Ugh.
Am I coming out of left field?
Number 2. Euphoria. The town of East Highland is located in sunny California, where the age of consent is, perhaps surprisingly, higher than New York's, set at 18. Well, this makes a lot of scenes from that show pretty gnarly. A lot of scenes.
Wow. Ooh. Ooh. Jealous room?
Number 3. Outer Banks. John B.'s character is listed as being 16 years old for season 1. The age of consent in North Carolina is also 16. So, you dirty pogues, you made it out as far as a judge would be concerned, but just barely, and I still have a thing or two I'd like to say.
Bye. Bye.
So in the case of at least Euphoria, we're definitely in the realm of the world of the show, kicking back to watch some hardcore, underage, illegal sex. And while Outer Banks and Riverdale can arguably make it out safe from that criticism, there is still another to be had.
You took everything from me!
Children are being exposed to porn earlier and earlier with the evolution of the internet and technology more generally. With that and other things, children are also engaging in sexual intercourse or at least sexually explicit acts earlier and earlier too. Physicians, parents, and developmental psychologists alike have all warned of the potential hazards of this process. It could lead to further objectification, increased predatory activity, and even desensitize those engaged.
Sorry.
Essentially, introducing something as complex as sex, whether through porn or otherwise, into the most influential developmental stages for young people could completely destabilize them. And interestingly enough, this is even something Euphoria has touched on themselves. As mentioned in both the show and in my other article, the antagonizing character of Nate Jacobs, played by Jacob Elordi, discovered his father's sex tapes at an extremely early age. From then on, Nate grew noticeably darker, as noted by his mother in season 2.
And then, I don't know, somewhere like around 8 or 9, you darkened.
As a teenager, he would then go on to manipulate people, abuse people, threaten, blackmail, and wrongfully incriminate people, even going so far as to hold his own ex-girlfriend, who he also brutally choked, at gunpoint. Is this character's complete disregard for other human beings a result of his upended psychological and sexual development? The experience has even been attributed to his struggle and confusion with his own sexuality.
You need to take a step back, Nate.
With the popularity of these kinds of shows amongst young audiences and their inherent glorification, romanticization, and idolization of sex, are we perhaps conditioning these sorts of results, and could these shows have something to do with the advancement of sexual experiences well into adolescence? Again, I know these are TV shows, but in film school we were taught to view these things as more than that, and with a critical lens. The content people consume has an effect on them. It just does. Think of it like the phrase, "you are what you eat."
I want you to want to kiss me so bad that you don't even ask.
It should also be noted that by having characters engage in these activities and perhaps experience either success or failure, they serve as a proxy for the viewer to contemplate and understand sex and their own individual sexuality. It's a scary, weird topic for a lot of people, one that you can't always run to mom and dad for. So maybe tuning in to HBO Max or Netflix or the CW is a helpful alternative. Or maybe not.
I don't know for certain.
People say the same thing about porn, and I still don't think that is a widely socially acceptable form of self-exploration just yet. Or maybe the reality is just that this 21-year-old writer is realizing that he's growing a little too old to continue watching these spicy teen romance dramas. They're starting to creep him out. Just remember, kids, these fictional characters you're watching in these fictional towns, in their fictional beds or cars or showers or wherever, are having just that, fictional sex. And the real world is a lot more complex, a lot more confusing, and a lot more nuanced.
Well, when you put it like that.